So that recent India-Pakistan clash, thankfully it was brief, just 4 days, right? It ended with a ceasefire and, well, the usual claims of victory from both sides.
Exactly. But beyond those headlines, there might be a much bigger story brewing, and the potential winner, maybe China's defense industry, surprisingly.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? How a small, short conflict like this can, send these ripples out globally, affecting how people see military tech and maybe what countries buy next.
Absolutely. And that's why this deep dive is so important, really, for understanding those wider effects, especially for you listening, maybe preparing for the UPSC exams. This hits international relations, defense strategy, new military tech. It's all in there. And our main source for this is the BBC's reporting.
Right. So our mission here is to unpack this 4-day conflict. It started May 7th. We need to look at what India and Pakistan are claiming and really dig into what this could mean for China as an arms seller.
And it all kicked off, as we understand it, with India striking what they call terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan.
Yeah, that was after the horrible killing of 26 people in Pahalgam back on April 22nd. Mostly tourists, killed right in front of their families in Indian-administered Kashmir. Just awful.
Truly tragic. India pointed a finger at Pakistan, accusing them of supporting the militants. Pakistan, well, they've denied that consistently.
So after that, India launched Operation Sindoor. And things escalated pretty quickly from there, didn't they? Tit-for-tat actions, drones, missiles, fighter jets, the works.
Okay, so let's get into the hardware, the planes involved, and the claims flying around. India seems to have used its French and Russian jets.
The Mirages, Sukhoi, maybe the Rafalas.
Presumably. And Pakistan, they reportedly used their J-10s and JF-17s. And these are important because they're co-produced with China. The J-10 is their multi-role fighter.
Right, and this is where it gets really interesting because Pakistan claimed it shot down, at least 6 Indian planes?
That was the claim, yes. And they specifically mentioned hitting the new French Rafales India has.
Which is a huge claim. But Delhi hasn't actually responded to that specific point, have they?
No, not directly. There's been silence on those specific losses. We did get a statement from Air Marshal A.K. Party from the Indian Air Force. He basically said, objectives met, pilots home safe.
But sidestepped the question about downed planes.
Pretty much, yeah. Declined to comment on that part.
Meanwhile, India's saying its strikes hit their targets, took out at least 100 terrorists. They mentioned Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed headquarters in Pakistan.
So you have these competing narratives. And the tricky part for anyone watching, international security folks, is the lack of solid proof either way about the air battle.
Right, you hear media reports, unconfirmed stuff about crashes maybe in Punjab or Kashmir, but the Indian government isn't talking about those.
Exactly. And that ambiguity, that information gap, it leaves room for different stories to take root. Which brings us to China.
Yeah, the BBC called it China's potential unlikely victory. There was that Reuters report citing U.S. officials suggesting Pakistan might have actually used those Chinese J-10s to fire air-to-air missiles at Indian jets.
Now, connecting this to, say, global power shifts, which is key for UPSC folks, the thinking goes, if Pakistan did have success using these Chinese weapons, even if the claims are only partly true, that could be a massive advertisement for Beijing's defense industry.
But not everyone agrees with that take, right? Some experts are skeptical.
Oh, definitely. It's not a consensus view yet, but the potential is there. Some are even making comparisons to that DeepSeek moment in AI earlier this year.
How so?
Well, the idea of a cheaper, maybe, cost-effective technology suddenly shaking up the established players. Could Chinese military hardware be doing something similar in the defense world? That's the question being asked.
And there was that quote from Zhu Bo, the retired PLA senior colonel.
Yes, he told the BBC this whole thing was like a big advertisement for Chinese weapons. He pointed out they haven't had much real combat testing before. He even said China has some systems that are next to none. That's quite a statement, especially thinking about India-China relations and China's military modernization.
And the stock market seemed to notice. Shares in Avik Chengdu Aircraft, the J-10 maker, they went up.
They reportedly saw a jump, yeah. After these reports about the J-10's performance came out, that kind of market reaction tells you something about perception, at least.
Okay, but we need the other side, too. For a balanced view, especially for, anyone studying this for exams, what are the counter-arguments?
Absolutely. Professor Walter Ladwig at King's College London, for instance, urges caution. He makes the point, look, we don't actually know if Chinese jets really outflew Indian ones, especially the Rafale. There's no hard proof yet.
And he mentioned something about standard military practice.
Right. He talked about standard doctrine. Usually you suppress the enemy's air defenses before you go for ground targets. His thinking is maybe the Indian Air Force mission wasn't actually designed to trigger a big Pakistani air response.
So maybe the goal wasn't air superiority at that moment.
Possibly. Ladwig even floated the idea that Indian pilots might have been told to push through even if Pakistani defenses and planes were up and active. Again, the IAF hasn't given many details about their mission or strategy, which leaves room for this kind of interpretation.
And what about Beijing, China itself? They've been quiet officially about the J-10 claims, the Rafale claims.
Officially, yes. Beijing's been silent on that. But, as Carlotta Renato, a China researcher, pointed out, Chinese social media has been buzzing. Lots of nationalistic posts, claims of victory, even without official confirmation. It shows how narratives catch fire online, which is a big part of modern international relations for UPSC candidates to track.
Renato's point was about perception being key, right? That maybe China wins in the perception battle regardless of the facts.
Exactly. She suggested that in terms of how things look right now, China might be seen as the winner, whether the claims about the air combat are fully accurate or not.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit, talk about the bigger picture, the China-Pakistan relationship. It's a strong alliance, economically too. China's invested huge amounts, like $50 billion, through CPAC, the economic corridor.
For sure. Beijing doesn't want a weak Pakistan on its border. It serves their strategic and economic goals to have a stable partner there. Imtiaz Gul, a Pakistani analyst, put it quite strongly. He said China made a critical difference this time.
Surprising Indian planners, maybe, with how closely Pakistan and China are cooperating on modern warfare.
That was his take, yeah. That the depth of that cooperation might have been underestimated. And this is definitely something for UPSC aspirants to factor into regional security analysis.
And this has ripples for the global arms market too, doesn't it? Everyone's watching how these Chinese jets performed, or seem to have performed, in real combat.
Definitely. It could really impact who buys what down the line. The U.S. is the top arms seller. China's number 4. But China mostly sells to developing countries like Myanmar, Pakistan.
And there have been questions about the quality of Chinese weapons in the past, haven't there?
There have. Reports about Myanmar grounding its JF-17s, the ones co-produced with Pakistan, due to technical problems. Nigeria also reported issues with Chinese F-7 jets. So there's that historical context to consider alongside these new claims.
It's not the first time India's lost a plane in a clash either. Back in 2019, after similar Indian strikes, Pakistan shot down an Indian MiG-21, captured the pilot.
That's right. And India claimed they shot down a Pakistani F-16 then, which Pakistan denies. So claim and counterclaim isn't new.
But Professor Ladwig, the expert you mentioned earlier, he had a different take on India's actions this time, despite the reports of downed jets.
Yes, he argued that on May 10th, India actually hit a pretty wide range of targets inside Pakistan, and that this part of the story got kind of lost in the international news cycle.
What kind of targets?
He mentioned coordinated attacks, possibly missile strikes, on up to 11 Pakistani air bases, including important ones like Nur Khan near Rawalpindi and even one way down south near Karachi, Bellary.
So his assessment was that the IAF maybe followed a more standard playbook this time, hitting air defenses first.
That's what he suggested, yeah. Attacking air defense, radar systems first, then going for ground assets. Using missiles, loitering munitions, drones, supposedly, even against Pakistan's Chinese HQ-9 air defense system. He noted the runway strike seemed precise.
But he also said India kind of lost the narrative by not explaining their mission.
Right. By not giving detailed briefings, maybe they allowed Pakistan's claims to dominate the story. Pakistan, for its part, claimed they hit back at Indian forward air bases, but Delhi said those caused no damage.
And the U.S. and others stepped in to cool things down.
Seems so. Reports suggest the U.S. and allies intervened to de-escalate, which isn't surprising given the stakes. For India, though, some analysts are saying this whole thing should be a wake-up call.
A wake-up call about what? Defense preparedness?
Potentially, yes. And a reminder, perhaps, from China, even if they're officially neutral about their improving weapon systems. India knows, of course, that the jets Pakistan has are older models.
Yeah.
China itself has the much more advanced J-20 stealth fighters now. That comparison is crucial for anyone studying India-China military capabilities for the UPSC.
Especially with the ongoing border dispute between India and China, that clash in Ladakh in 2020 is still fresh.
Exactly. It all underlines why India needs to speed up its own defense manufacturing, the whole Make in India push, and also keep procuring advanced tech from abroad.
So summing it up, it feels like, for now at least, China's defense industry is the one really basking in the spotlight from this. Whether deserved or not, that's the perception.
That seems to be the immediate takeaway, yes. So just to recap for you, the listener, we've looked at the conflicting claims from the India-Pakistan clash, the spotlight on Chinese-made jets, the different expert views, and the bigger picture of China-Pakistan ties in the arms trade. But remember, a clear, confirmed picture. That's still missing.
And for you listening, whether you're deep into UPSC prep needing this current affairs analysis or just trying to grasp these complex world events, this really highlights a few things. How tricky geopolitics are, how fast military tech is changing, and how important narratives become in conflicts. It really drives home the need for critical thinking, looking at information from all sides.
Definitely. And if you found this deep dive useful, please do like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you have more questions. This is clearly an evolving story, lots of strategic implications, and we can always dig deeper into things like the arms trade dynamics.
Absolutely. And maybe one final thought for you to chew on. Given how little hard information we have, how much could just the perception of one side's technology being superior, even if it's not fully proven, actually influence future military purchases and alliances? Not just in South Asia, but, globally. Something to think about.